Then Al-Akhdari mentions the faslun fara'idul wudu'i sab'atun. He mentions the fara'id of wudu, the obligatory acts of wudu are ablution. And from here on in, we'll use the word in most cases, wudu, which is to make ablution. And according to the Maliki madhab, we have 7 things that are obligatory. The first one that he mentions is an-niyatu, which is intention. And the intention in our madhab is said in the heart, and it's not said on the tongue. So all a person has to do to obtain the fard of making the niyyah is just to have the niyyah in his heart that he's making a wudu that is obligatory, or that he's making or having the intention that he's removing the state of hadath. So it is sufficient for a person, for example, who's not in the state of wudu, to have an intention that I'm making wudu in order to remove the state of hadath. The second one is ghasl al-wajhi. Ghasl al-wajhi means washing the entire face, and that goes from the beginning of the hairline all the way down to the chin. And if we look at widthwise, it's from ear to ear. What do we mean from ear to ear? If you look at the 2 pins that stick out on the ear, that stick out from the ear, that is close to the sideburns of the hair, the whole entire face from the left side to the right side is included in washing the entire face. Then وَغَسْلُ الْيَدَيْنِ إِلَى الْمِرْفَقَيْنِ, washing the arms including the elbows. The reason why we don't say up to the elbows, we say including the elbows, is because a person, when they make wudu, your elbows have to be included in washing your arms. So washing your arms, including the elbows, is obligatory. Then masr ra'si. Masr ra'si means to wipe over the forehead. Not the forehead, to wipe over the head. So passing your hands over the head once is considered obligatory. And in our madhab, a person has to wipe over all of the head. Not 3/4, not a quarter, not a half, but a person has to wipe over all of his head. And what do we mean by wiping? To dip your hands inside the water and take them out, not carrying any water in them, and passing the hands over the head. وَغَسْلُ الرِّجْلَيْنِ إِلَى الْكَعْبَيْنِ, washing the feet including the ankle bones. And the ankle bone are the 2 bones that stick out of the side of the feet at the level of the ankle. So those have to be included, up to that level has to be included in washing one's feet. Delk, which many people translate as rubbing, it doesn't necessarily mean rubbing, it just means that you use your hands to pass over your limbs while making ablution. For example, you see some people in the masjid, when they're making ablution, they use their feet to rub the other foot while making wudu. According to other madhabs, like the madhab of Abu Hanifa, that's fine. In our madhab, any limb that has to be washed, we have to use our hands to wash it. So we can't use the left foot to rub the right foot when we're making wudu, or vice versa. You have to use your hands to wash the limbs when making ablution. In terms of the 7th one is what we call al-fawr. Al-fawr generally means to do your wudu in a continuous manner. What do we mean? That it is not acceptable for a person, for example, to make ablution and then stop and make it again. But pay attention, because what we mean by fawr is that a person does not begin his wudu and complete half of it, then stop for the length that all of the limbs of his ablution were to dry, and then go back and continue. So for example, if you were making ablution and the phone rang and you went and answered the phone, after hanging up the phone, if your limbs are all dry, then you're no longer in the state of wudu, so you cannot continue completing your wudu. But let's say, for example, you washed your face, and then you washed your arms, and then the phone rang. And you went and you spoke on the phone for 2 minutes or 30 seconds, and you hung up the phone, and some of your limbs were still wet. Then it's permissible for you to go back and continue your wudu from where you left off. Because the principle here in Maliki fiqh, as long as your limbs are still wet, you're still in the state of wudu. So as long as your limbs are still wet, you're in the state of wudu. But if your limbs are dry, then you're not in the state of wudu. And so when you're not in the state of wudu, then you can't build upon the wudu that you began. But if your limbs are wet, you're still considered a person who's in the state of wudu, so you can continue from there. So that's the meaning of al-fawr, which is to do your wudu in a continuous manner without breaking the length that your limbs were to dry. So if your limbs were to dry, then you have to start your ablution from the beginning. And that's the 7 fara'id, the 7 obligatory acts that is mentioned by Al-Akhdari rahimahullah, which is correct according to the Maliki method.